Hello and welcome to JU Podcast, where we explore ideas, inspire innovation, and talk about the leadership of India and its sustainable future. I am Swati Sakshi Mishra, and today I had the distinct honor of hosting one of the most visionary leaders of India who has been at the forefront of shaping India's future, Mr. Suresh Prabhu. Mr. Prabhu is a name synonymous to impactful policymaking and innovation. With his career spanning decades, he has served India in multiple capacities as the Minister of Railways, Civil Aviation, Commerce, and Environment. Sir is truly a visionary leader, one of the most important in India. Today, we'll dive into his journey, his vision of India, how he balances sustainability with development. So, we are truly honored to have you with us today. So, first of all, how are you feeling right now?
Fine, great. I'm very happy to be here. It was a great convocation. The students are so intelligent and so accomplished. The atmosphere is so electrifying. And generally, it looks like students are enjoying being here for what they learned and also what they enjoyed and what they actually uh, felt part of this entire growing family of this university. So it's very happy that I was there too.
We are truly glad, sir. We'll dive straight in the conversation. Sir, my first question to you is what truly inspired you to take up public services and how your early life experiences impacted your vision for India?
See, firstly, there is nothing like a public service as a standalone activity. Every person owes it to the society to pay back. See, when I'm growing now, I have a son, I have a grandson. But I also had a grandfather and a grandmother, and my parents were there. So when I was taking care of them, I never thought that I'm doing any favor to them. I was discharging my duty towards my parents and my grandparents. So is my son is or my daughter-in-law looks at it like that. So there is nothing like a public service distinct from living your normal life. So some people can give more time, some give less time, and it's not a quantity of time that you give it to that. It's your commitment, mental commitment, emotional commitment. For example, somebody who is living outside India, whom we call NRIs, they may not have even visited India for years, but I still think of India. I think that I'll call it as a public service. So public service is not a standalone activity. It has to become integral part of your own personality. So I cannot come and say, see, I have done a great job. I took care of my parents. Is it something that I should be talking about, or I should be saying is it a favor that I've done to them? No. The same way, like mother is to you because she is your biological mother, she gives you birth. There is something like motherland. The society that you live in, you couldn't have done what you are able to do today in anybody without he being part of a society. And a society is not independent of a nation. So nation, society are integral part. So is the individual who is product of both nation and a society. So he has to give back something to them from where we are getting it. And if you don't do that, you are actually doing disservice to yourself. Because we all believe in that soul of every human person, human body evolves. So the evolution process, body may decay, but soul still travels. And the traveling of the soul through your body, that's a time when you have an ability, you have a possibility of making some value addition to that. So doing social service is part of that process.
That was truly an inspiring answer, sir. Sir, you have served for decades now as a leader at multiple spheres. So I'm sure that being a leader, leadership in itself asks for a lot of tough decisions. You have to make a lot of tough decisions at places, and it tests your resilience. So can you please share one instance from your life where it truly tested your resilience and how you overcame it?
I was very fortunate because I am by training a chartered accountant and a lawyer. And I was practicing chartered accountant lawyer when I was called, invited to join politics. So I ran Lok Sabha election, and the day I became Lok Sabha member, I was cabinet minister, either central government, state. I was never in lower government, nothing. So for me, it was a great opportunity, but also it was a challenge because I was never in politics. And I straight away got into the apex of politics. And the day I became Lok Sabha MP, state was cabinet. So I had no time to learn. So that one was a challenge. Then of course I continued for 4 terms in Lok Sabha, 2 terms in Rajya Sabha without asking for a nomination. I was lucky, fortunate. So there I handled 10 cabinet positions. So each one of them was tough in itself. There's nothing like a soft position. Each position demands a lot of delivery towards people from that particular responsibility. So power was one of the important. When I was Power Minister of India in year 2000, the 18% peak level power shortage, 18%. And then we did amazing changes, completely dramatic changes, which resulted into now India becoming power surplus. So for me, if you ask me in retrospect, if I had not been given that opportunity of doing what I could do, today India would be a dark country because you did not see light anywhere. So you said there's a light at the end of the tunnel, but nothing like that. We could never come out of the tunnel because we are probably trapped into the tunnel of darkness had we not done what we did. So I think that was one of the very, very important milestone in my life, that I could change the trajectory of entire power sector, because we had nationalized entire power business in 1948. And that had resulted in private sector having almost nothing. And because private sector didn't have any contribution less than 2%, and all government companies which were nationalized were broke, completely bankrupt. So in that given situation, we could do that. In my opinion, this is most satisfying experience for me, to change the course of the economy, because no economic activity can happen without power.
True. Yeah.
So not only we changed the course of power sector, which we did for sure, but also we changed the economic progress. We actually hastened the economic progress of India.
So, you have been serving India ever since India was a closed market. You have first-handedly witnessed the liberation of Indian market. And being a CA, someone who has been totally involved in the economic sphere of India, how do you see that the youth back then was more mindful in their spending habits, or is it the other way around right now?
See, it's like this. When you earn more, you spend more. Of course, there is a possibility that without earning also people spend.
Yeah.
They borrow and spend.
Yeah.
Like you call it US, the credit cards.
The credit card.
So if you don't have money, but your plastic money, you keep spending. Earn later, spend first. That's a study. Possible. But normally, the spending happens, if not today's earning, at least future earning. That's why you spend today so that I can earn tomorrow and pay. So earning is very important. So increasing incomes of the people is very, very important. That too of those people who are below the poverty line. See, today we have 800 million, 80 crore people to whom we give free food. So that means they have no ability to spend much, because 80 crore people are getting free food, they cannot buy food, that's why they are getting free food. So if you cannot buy food, then where are you going to buy something else? Because the food is the basic thing that people like to spend their money on. So I think we have to make sure, whether it's a closed economy or open economy, that increasing income of those who don't have anything is to be the primary responsibility and a preoccupation of any policymaker at any time of the year, any time of the life of the country. So I think we have to work on that.
So as you just mentioned policy making. So it must have been really difficult to strike balance between parallels, because when you are making policies, there are a lot of parallel conditions that come into play. So, sir, how do you strike the perfect balance between development and social equity? Because maybe it can end up exploiting one or the other.
If you plan it properly, there is nothing like trade-off. You can actually do development for what? For social equity.
Yeah.
So if you are actually not keeping that objective in mind and still are going for mindless development, then it's a recipe for disaster. But if you really keep that in mind all the time, that I am doing this for making sure that those people who are nothing today, the development is meant for them, then there is nothing like making a choice. This becomes in fact your preoccupation. You are actually working only toward that objective, single-mindedly. And therefore I think that is what is more important. And I always worked like that. For example, even when I was environment minister, I was always caring about the poor people. So fishermen, they're farmers. So I launched a bamboo program way back in 1998.
Great.
And today it is now really catch like a wildfire in a real way. So this is something which you always must keep in mind. People who need development. See, basically it's like mother has many kids,
Yeah.
for example. So whom she'll take care of the most? Mother will like all kids, right?
Right.
But whom she'll take care of the most? Who is probably relatively little bit less advantage than the other kids. The most disadvantaged kid mother will love most. So that should be the job of the government. The government must take care of those who are most disadvantaged, who are the least developed. That's the job of the government.
Sir, 1400 plus students are graduating from JCRC University today, and they all come from different field of studies, but they are all JCRC's gift to the future of India. What are your words, or maybe some basically a cheat code for them to make it big in life?
I think first and foremost, they must focus on themselves. Nothing wrong, actually. If you don't care for yourself, you can never care for anybody else. So that for sure. Then they must take care of their family, for sure. But they must also keep in mind that they are product of the environment. I'm not talking about environment in that sense of the term. Whatever is the surrounding around them, it is actually them that is responsible for their today's present status. So also take care of those who are surrounding you, whom you can see, but also take care of those whom you cannot see. There are people who are in such darkness, जो अंधेरे में उनको हम देख भी नहीं पाते. तो ऐसे अंधेरे में के लोगों को भी हमको ख्याल करना चाहिए. तो I think I would request my young fortunate graduates who will now be very proud holder of a degree that don't forget them. Always keep in mind that you are advantaged. You got this great opportunity to be studying in such a prestigious institution, but also now holding a very invaluable document in your hand as a degree. So try to now use that power of education to do something good for yourself and your family for sure, but also try to use your knowledge, your ability, your competence for bettering the lives of others.
That was truly a great advice, sir. Sir, my last question from you today is that India is emerging as a global hub of innovation. So, what do you think that what could be that one prime sector that could truly take us up?
See, I'll tell you, I was Minister of Commerce Industry, so always thinking about innovation was my responsibility. I was always telling people that you innovate for business, good, nothing wrong. But if you try to innovate for solving social problems, it will make a better business sense also. But in the process, will solve the problem of people. For example, sanitation, a big problem in India.
True.
And though we have toilets, etc., but the kind of hygiene that we need, can we not use your innovation idea to actually address this issue? I know so many women in Mumbai, they wait for darkness to come so that they can answer nature's call. Because they're so poor, there is no toilet. And then therefore they wait to cover their body through darkness. What would be the physical condition of a person? Just hold on to not allow the natural call to be answered at the right time. So try to address these issues through innovation. Use technology, think about it. And then that will make business sense because so many of them will be waiting to use such an idea, such a service, such a product, such a process. So I think that is what is important for me.
So, we have to strike a balance between social equity.
Absolutely. And now it's not actually bad, honestly speaking. It always makes sense. It's like it says that if I want to be happy, first thing I should do is to make you happy. If I can make many others happy, happiness will always come back to me. And if I try to make people unhappy, try to harass them, that will also come back to me. So if you actually try to solve the problems of the people, it will come back to you not only in terms of blessings, but also in terms of monetary benefit, in terms of your product becoming successful in marketplace, because that's a demand which is not satisfied today. So you are actually creating a new demand for your ideas and products.
Okay. That'll be surely a great gift and maybe a startup idea for many those who are watching us right now. So, thank you so much for this conversation. This was truly inspiring. I'm sure a lot of people will definitely take a lot of notes from this conversation. We're truly honored to have you today.
Thank
Thank
you
you
very
so much
much.
for giving us your time.
Congratulations to all those who are graduate from today. So they'll be known as now not just X or Y,
Yeah.
but they'll also be able to add something below the name or just after that, a degree. So that should improve the degree of confidence in you, but also increase your engagement in a vast more manner than what it is today. So all the best to you. Congratulations. And also congratulations to proud parents of such happy graduates. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much, everyone. To our listeners, please remember that every single step is important when you dare to dream big. Thank you and keep tuning us to JU Podcast.